Hello, my name is Nadia Tanova, and I'm the owner of NHT Consulting. I'm partnering with the API Health Forum to bring you this video on team building for managers. This video is part of a series on various management topics, so be sure to check out the other videos to strengthen your management skills. In this video, you'll learn strategies for team building and creating a positive work culture that can be used virtually or in person. Team building is one of the most important things that you will do as a manager. Having a strong, vibrant, and cohesive team leads to increased productivity and effectiveness for your organization, and increased morale and satisfaction for your employees. Strong teams inspire. They bring out the best in people, and they ultimately bring your organization closer to meeting its mission and its vision. It can be challenging to bring your team together and create a healthy, dynamic work environment. But by implementing these 4 tips, you can make your team stronger. Let's go through each one in detail. Tip number 1, create a culture of trust. Having trust is crucial for a healthy, functioning team, but it takes time to build. To get started, you must be willing to model trust with your team, collectively and individually. Follow through on your commitment to your teams. Be vulnerable with them. Openly support them and give them credit for their ideas and their work. These are all examples of how you can model trust within your team. Also be sure to have open conversations about trust with your team to explore what trust looks like to them, what they need to trust one another, and how they want to show up with one another. Be sure to allow space for differing opinions in these conversations. Robust debate and sharing of ideas are signs of a healthy team, because it means that people have enough trust in their teammates to express their own ideas, even if they're different from others. Tip number 2, create a culture of open communications. Having open communications is important for any team to thrive and be healthy, and also helps to build your own culture of trust. When you and your team are able to effectively communicate, you not only prevent a lot of problems that happen from misunderstandings, you also build trust. That trust will bring out creativity and healthy debate on how to best achieve your goals. It allows for all people on your team to bring their full talents to the table and to talk to their colleagues about how to play to one another's strengths. To create a culture of open communications, it starts with you. Again, you'll have to model this for your teams. Be open with your staff collectively and individually. If there is something you cannot share with them or talk about, openly state and explain that. Open communications doesn't mean that you share everything, but it does mean that you'll take the time to explain what you can and can't talk about and why that is. Also, encourage your team to talk openly with one another. You can lead your team through conversations on what open communications means to them, what they need to feel comfortable openly communicating, and how they would like to communicate with one another. Open communications requires people on your team to trust that they can honestly share their opinions and feedback without repercussions. This can take time to build, but if you model it for your team and intentionally work together to make it part of your culture, it will pay off. Tip number 3, create a culture of buy-in. Having buy-in from your staff is an important aspect of team building. You can create buy-in by involving your team in decision-making as appropriate. Often it is the job of managers to set the goals and lay out expectations for their teams. But your team should have some autonomy to decide how they will accomplish those goals, both collectively and individually. For example, you may set a goal of distributing up-to-date health information for your community in their native language. Now it's time to bring in your team to decide how they'll accomplish this goal. Members of your team should understand their unique contributions towards meeting that goal and how they will work collectively to make it happen. You can also create buy-in around the type of work culture you want to build by having your team fully engage in decision-making around what type of culture they want to create, their individual role in establishing that culture, and how they will work collectively and hold one another accountable to ensure that culture is upheld. When people have the opportunity to be creative and decide how they will accomplish their goals, they have greater buy-in and investment in their work. Tip number 4, build relationships. An important part of building your team is creating space for you to get to know everyone and for your staff to build relationships with one another. This can be done virtually and in person through large and small initiatives. For example, you could use a team meeting or retreat to learn about one another's work styles. You could schedule a weekly lunch together, or you could carve out space at the beginning of each meeting to check in on one another and see how each person on your team is doing. There are so many fun ways to build relationships with your colleagues. The important role of a manager is to be intentional in creating the space necessary to foster healthy relationships with and among your team. Building your teams is one of the most rewarding and challenging parts of being a manager. By creating a culture of trust and open communications, creating buy-in, and building relationships, you can strengthen your team and create a healthy, vibrant work culture. Be sure to see the handout on team building during the COVID-19 pandemic, which gives you more tips, including some that focus on remote teams. Also complete the Healthy Teams checklist and get additional resources for strengthening the areas where you have room to grow. Thank you for your leadership. I hope you enjoy the journey of building a stronger team.